What's up, everybody? Today we're walking through leveling up and gearing up in Eureka Hydatos, the fourth and final field operation zone in Final Fantasy XIV, Stormblood. There are timestamps in the description below to reference specific topics, but if it's your first time going through Eureka, I'd recommend watching the full guide. Thanks for checking this out. Let's get started. At this point, hopefully you've watched the previous videos in the series, have a basic understanding of the leveling and crystal grinding strategies presented there, and have completed at least your first relic weapon and left side elemental armor through the Pyro step. The best news is that you shouldn't need to pick up anything new for this zone, so head to Rodney at Pier 1 in Kugane to enter Eureka Hydatos, and we'll walk through the final leg of this journey. Just a reminder, if you've made it this far in the guide series but haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing that now. It helps me a ton and makes sure you get a heads up when the next video comes out. As soon as you zone in, and before we unleash you to continue murdering and pillaging, attune to the Aetherite, talk to Kryl, and complete a bunch of story quests, the first thing you should notice is actually on your status info bar. You no longer have the elemental experience buff from the first 3 zones when you're in Hydatos. So, does that finally mean that grinding the Fate Train is the best leveling method? Nope. While your experience buff is no longer there, the zone balances this by guaranteeing mutations and adaptations on all mobs that are under their mutation weather and time conditions. Linked in the description is the mutation chart I prefer to use to pick my next victims. Create a couple of plates with Wisdom of the Platebearer and Bloodbath. Reference your mutation chart of choice, and then mass murder things one level higher than you because we never punch down. Always punch up, kings and queens. But what about our old friend Reflect? Did you hear some fancy YouTuber say that Hydatos is great for Reflect? Well, they were wrong about that too. Reflect is good for free basic logograms, but it's not ideal for leveling in Hydatos. Grinding more accessible and less dangerous enemies in the early levels is better than risky and time-limited Reflect farming at the Mammoths. In the later levels, leveling on Sprite Island is just as risky for a less experienced player, and you have to deal with extremely slow respawn times on the sprites that negates the decent per kill experience numbers. That being said, you can get a few hundred conceptual or fundamental logograms in just a few minutes by reflecting on Sprite Island anytime after level 57. These sprites give conceptuals. And these sprites give fundamentals. Grinding is so fast and so effective through Hydatos that Reflect just becomes the dangerous, slow, lazy way to grind out the last couple of levels. If it happens to be a really bad weather or time of day for your current level to farm mutations and adaptations, pop some appropriate level fates. You will need a ton of crystals here, and they only give a handful from most fates, so get to grinding. Once you hit level 59, you want to keep an eye out for the level 60 fate boss, Provenance Watcher. It only drops 3 crystalline scales, so you'll need to kill it twice to get the 5 required to complete your weapon. Unlike the other zones, you cannot buy the scales from the Expedition Birdwatcher. You have to farm them the hard way. Also at level 59, you want to keep an eye out for Avni. Unlike other NMs, Avni spawns every 30 minutes, so long as 8 people in the instance have hit level 60 and unlocked the Baldesion Arsenal. It also gives 10 crystals and really good experience every time it gets killed, so make sure you get gold on this. If a group enters the Baldesion Arsenal after the Avni Fate, the Fate stops spawning until 30 minutes after everyone exits the dungeon, but replacing those Avni spawns is a support Fate for the Baldesion Arsenal run. Clearing this from the outside allows those inside to continue progressing the dungeon through to a clear, and rewards those outside with 30 crystals. So, it's worth it to drop whatever you're doing and join a group to do this fate anytime it's about to be popped. In addition to the 5 crystalline scales from Provenance Watcher, to finish up the weapon step for this zone, you'll need 350 Hydatos crystals. At the Pyro step, or the Eureka step, you can return to Pyros to grind substats further if you want. And I've rerolled hundreds of times myself, but that is definitely min-max, super sweaty, try-hard, borderline toxic behavior at this point. So feel free to skip it unless you like pointless pain or just kinda hate yourself a little bit. The overall final weapon stage, Physios, requires 100 Eureka fragments, which are looted from the Baldesion arsenal, so we'll cover that in the Baldesion arsenal guide. You can do quests as you go along, but I typically just finish the quests once I'm level 60 to avoid distractions and avoid some of the aggro from things along the way. There's no real reason to do the quests until you're 60 and preparing to begin the Baldesion arsenal anyways. I would strongly suggest setting aside about an hour to complete all of them though, because there's a lot of running around and a lot of cutscenes. So don't plan on being able to join a Baldesion arsenal run and then just quickly skip through them in 5 minutes. You'll know you've completed the questline up to unlocking the Baldesion arsenal when you get this ominous pop-up confirmation. As you're preparing to start running the Baldesion arsenal, I wouldn't worry about the elemental armor upgrades just yet. Elemental +1 is cosmetic only, and the Elemental +2s require Eureka fragments from inside the Baldesion arsenal. So you can grind out the crystals for those upgrades to +1 when there's no Baldesion arsenal runs active. As a side note, the Elemental +1 armor requires all 56 Logos actions to be discovered. Reference the Eureka tracker to determine how to make the combinations that you haven't made yet to hit that requirement. You may need to buy or farm more logograms to get this complete, and this is a fairly tedious step, but at least with the tracker it's fairly easy. Also, while prepping for the Baldesion arsenal, I would strongly recommend farming the Bunny Fates for 3 Aethertite flasks. These items can be traded to the Expedition Alchemist in camp. Each one traded will expand your Logos action tray by 1 slot, up to a maximum of 6 slots. It's not required, but it is extremely helpful to give yourself more flexibility when attempting to clear the Baldesion arsenal. Another item that is sometimes useful for the Baldesion arsenal is the Etheric Stabilizer. These will allow you to enter the portals after Omni or the support fate while they're still blue, guaranteeing you a spot in the dungeon when the raid starts. Many times, the designated support group members will use these to ensure their spot in the final 2 fights of the dungeon and expedite their entry into the Baldesion arsenal since the rest of the group is standing around waiting for the support team. Using one of these will cause a random red portal to not spawn though, so if anyone uses one on one of the post-Omni portals, it's likely to cause interpersonal friction. I will not condone or condemn usage of these items in this situation, but for the record, using these items is not against terms of service. Using these items to openly grief others is against terms of service. Griefing others who choose to use the item is also against terms of service. The last thing to note in this guide is your Magia Wheel. In Animos, you get the initial 5 Magicite, but in Pyros, a new opportunity to unlock a 6th one was made available. In Hydatos, there's another vendor that will give you a 7th Magicite to place in your board if you turn in 3 ultra-rare Fate Boss drops to him in camp. The required items are the Molek's Horn from Molek, Goldamar's Horn from Goldamar, and Cedo's Claw from Cedo. These can be farmed over time or purchased, but are really only for folks that are heavily invested in long-term content engagement in Eureka. You can still only align a max of 5 Magicite per element on your wheel, but adding a 6th or 7th Magicite will allow for configurations that put points into both offense and defense. Most commonly maxing out offensive alignment with a minor boost to survivability. I've done this on multiple characters, so I'm not saying to not do it, but do your own cost-benefit analysis here before investing a ton of gil or time into these. For anyone who wants to learn more about all the cool stuff that you can collect from Eureka Hydatos in addition to your relic weapon, we'll be discussing the lockboxes, bunny fates, moisture ward lockboxes, and other fate drops in another video. So that should be just about everything you need to know to get through Hydatos. I hope this guide was super helpful for you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I look forward to seeing you out there in Eureka Hydatos and in the 56-player raid, the Baldesion Arsenal. Unlike Mr. Happy, not only will my upcoming guide on the Baldesion Arsenal be thorough, it will actually exist. Until then, feel free to join us on Saturdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time each week as we tackle the Baldesion Arsenal on the Aether Data Center.